Welcome to Changemaker Chats, a series about passionate people working to change our community into a place where all people thrive, regardless of their income, race, or place. I'm John Wilgers, President and CEO of Greater Twin Cities United Way. I'd like to welcome today's guest, Adair Mosley. Adair is President and CEO of Pillsbury United Communities, a Greater Twin Cities United Way nonprofit partner. So welcome, Adair, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
So, Adair, why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about yourself and about Pillsbury United Communities?
Yeah, thank you. Great to be with you all. This is really, I have the privilege and honor of serving as the president and CEO and stewarding an over century-old community-based organization that has anchored itself really in the aspirations of what community dreams for themselves and their families. We are a proud group of community builders that are co-creating enduring change toward a just society. And it's undergirded by a vision that every person has personal, social, and economic power. And that manifests itself through a multitude of programs and services, and then really a lot of entrepreneurship and innovative solutions to tackling some of society's toughest challenges through some of our social enterprises. So a conglomerate of program services and social enterprises, but all pulling levers of change to really get us to this place of personal, social, and economic power. Personally, I come to this work on the road less traveled, I like to say, having spent an immense amount of time on the front lines of human services, advocating for the voiceless and making sure that we remove the barriers that stand in the way of human progress, and have spent the last almost 10 years at Pillsbury in a variety of roles, but most recently as the CEO for the past 3.5.
So Adair, was clear in your comments that Pillsbury United Community is a organization that is committed to equity and committed to justice, like Greater Twin Cities United Way. When you say justice lives here, tell me what that means to you and what you're trying to say to people who see it.
Yeah, in the words of Brian Stevenson, I believe it is, that the opposite of this inequity is justice, right? And so paraphrasing that, but ultimately that's what we're trying to drive at as an organization. That true justice comes when there's equity in health, that we have the infrastructure and the systems and the social connectedness amongst community to that individuals and communities can have a self-actualized and a self-determined life. And that it is really our goal as an organization is to remove those systemic and oppressive barriers that stand in the way of that progress. And so every day, the individuals inside of this organization are dismantling those systems of inequities to make sure that individuals can live a more just and kind life. And so our work is sitting at that intersection of what is just and what is kind, and ultimately landed on that it is justice that lives here. That is the ethos of this work as an organization.
So this has been a year where inequity and lack of justice has probably been as evident, more evident than it's ever been. When you think about the pandemic and when you think about the murder of George Floyd, how has that impacted the work you do, the way your work is received, the way your work is supported? How has that changed this year?
There's this heavy weight that rests across our entire community to relive the trauma and the traumatic experiences that we've gone through over the past almost a year. But certainly that was a moment of reckoning, but we know that it's been centuries of injustices against Black people and people of color more broadly. That has impacted our work a great deal, not only me personally as being a Black leader and living in this moment of what does it mean to be a Black person and move through the world, that there are oftentimes joy and happiness and a sense of pride of being Black, but there's a heaviness to it and a weight of the constant kind of systemic oppression of people of color that constantly come into contact with systems that oppress them. And so if you know the book Black Fatigue, I think it describes the essence of living in that dichotomy. And so much like that for myself, and it's like that for the individuals that work inside of our organization who are both allies and also experience it in more overt ways. And so that impacts our work a great deal as an organization, as individuals. But we are resolved and determined as these community builders to continue to push on systems and recognize that this is our calling in this moment to see that we get to a place of justice. And that has impacted our work. And, funny that Justice Live Here mantra we actually came up with in 2019. And we had a great deal of dialogue, even being bold with such a statement. And then George Floyd happened, and we said it was right that we wanted to call that this work is about achieving justice and achieving equity and parity in our communities. And so we've doubled down as an organization around these systems, around thinking more both upstream and downstream, and that they both have to exist for us to dismantle systems of inequity.
You made reference to the book Black Fatigue by Mary Frances Winters. I'm about halfway through it, and I think it does a really amazing job of helping to understand the impact that all of these things, ranging from daily life all the way through systemic oppression and racism, come together to have this kind of exhaustion, if you will, when you live in this community, in this world as a Black person. So I would recommend it, and I think it's a really good book. We have this moment here where all of this has been, like I said earlier, amplified in maybe a way it's never been amplified before. But I talk about frequently the responsibility that all of us have to turn this moment into a movement, and capitalize on this to keep this momentum into the future. What do you think when you think about it, what are some of those things that do turn this moment into a movement?
Well, I absolutely that it's not a moment, it is a movement, and movements require galvanization, proximity, solidarity. And as people think about making this into a movement, I think it encompasses all of those things. And you certainly have to be in proximity and in relationship with those that have the most stake in the game. And frankly, that's the lives of Black people. That's the lives of our Asian American brothers and sisters. And so we have to be in proximity to those communities, and we have to lift up their lived experiences. We have to lift up their truth, and that's what movement requires. And then once we center their experiences as part of this, then I think we're able to move and push on a system collectively to bring about the change that we all envision. And so this moment is, as much as it is about action, it is also about deep listening and an empathetic approach to the work. And this is particularly for white allies, I think, in this work. That's what movement requires. And so I implore everyone to get in relationship, to get informed by those that have the most stake in the game, if we are to use this energy and to fuel it into long-term and kind of enduring change.
Yeah. So my last question, Adair, I'll ask. So in this time, what gives you hope?
There are simply days that this work is heavy, and I have to acknowledge that. But every day I rise with a sense of hope and optimism that each day can be better. I remained determined and disciplined and hopeful that the moment that we're in will pass and will bring about a better future for all of us. But I also recognize that, again, as I stated earlier, that we're living in the dichotomy of kind of emotions, and that will probably continue to be our new normal. But I have hope that we can transform place, and it can be transformed because we've centered people's ideas and the aspirations for themselves and their communities, that it's self-actualized and self-determined. And what gives me hope is I'm seeing a groundswell of change agents emerge that are seeking a more balanced and harmonious relationship with our systems and policies, with our values. And that gives me hope that we will be able to achieve that reinforcing relationship to bring about this place of justice.
So Adair, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being a change maker.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.